Lekki Toll Gate, a nondescript toll plaza on a busy Lagos highway, has become a rallying cry for Nigerians demanding police reform. After dark on October 20, eyewitnesses say security forces opened fire on protesters demonstrating against Nigeria's Special Anti-Robbery Squad, known as SARS. According to Amnesty International, at least 12 people were killed at Lekki and a second location, though the government said 2 people died.
This place was a war zone. But it was one army fighting civilians, unarmed civilians, peaceful civilians, civilians who were exercising their constitutional right.
Days of confrontation followed between protesters and police, the largest in more than a generation. The clashes left at least 51 civilians, 11 police officers and 7 soldiers dead, according to government figures. The Nigerian government vowed investigations and reform. It disbanded the SARS unit, reassigned officers, and promised additional human rights training. There are several investigations underway looking into alleged police abuse of power. Officials in recent days admitted that the soldiers did have live rounds while at Lekki, but they say that forces did not fire into the crowd and acted with restraint.
At this point, it is important to say that the federal government is very satisfied with the role played by the security agencies, especially the military and the police, all through the SARS crisis. The security agents were professional and measured in their response. Even when their lives were at stake, they exercised uncommon restraint.
Rights groups say that the SARS unit, before it was disbanded, had been a symbol of excessive force.
This unit had been associated with egregious and systematic human rights abuses, including torture, extrajudicial execution, arbitrary detention. They were almost a law unto themselves and had been the focus of concern by the media as well as by domestic and international human rights groups for several years. And so when the announcement came that the unit was going to be disbanded, on the one hand, it represented a major step forward, but on the other hand, there was nothing else. And that triggered the protests that were linked to calls for systematic, comprehensive security sector reform and reform of the police.
Protesters say disbanding the SARS police unit was not enough. They are calling for lasting police reform at all levels, and they say their demands are not being met. There are allegations that Nigeria's security forces continue to use heavy-handed tactics against members of the public and have done so for years. During last summer's COVID-19 lockdown, Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission found that security forces killed 18 people. Rights groups say the culture of police abuse is pervasive. In Africa's most populous nation, where the median age is 18, many of the protesters are young people. Analysts say their public dissent is likely to continue.
But one thing is clear, right? What is clear is that the youth in Nigeria are awake, right? They have decided that they have a voice, right? And that the government is going to hear their voice one way or the other.
Nigeria's attempt for reform is being closely watched in the United States, where policymakers have been instrumental in calling for reform and organizing the Nigerian diaspora to demand action from the international community. After protests spread throughout Nigeria in October, U.S. Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a Democrat from Texas, marched with her constituents in the Mickey Leland Federal Building in Houston to show solidarity with the Nigerian protesters.
They want a free, peaceful Nigeria, free of the killing of innocent persons. They're outraged by the violence, the burning that they've seen, the killing at the gate that they have had to experience. They had a video showing the outright shooting by military persons that would really break your heart, because you know that unarmed persons lost their life that night. Someone's young son or daughter.
Opal Tamedi, a Nigerian-American human rights activist, says Nigeria must allow public dissent.
It is not tenable. The brutality that the protesters have been met with is not tenable. They had a right to assemble. They have a right to protest. And in many ways, it's their duty to protest when things have been so bad. When they've gotten to a certain point, you have no other choice.
As a Nigerian judicial panel continues its investigation into excessive force, 154 organizations from the world over have asked the International Criminal Court in The Hague to conduct its own probe. Salim Solomon, VOA News, Washington.